No one noticed. An old woman, 68 years old, stood quietly at the firing range. The early sunlight glinted off her neatly tied gray hair. In her hands, she held a heavy rifle looking out of place among the young, cocky snipers with their sleek gear and arrogant eyes. "Are you sure you want to try?" A young instructor smirked, his voice half pitying, half mocking. The muscular men around him chuckled under their breath. They saw her trembling hands. They saw the deep wrinkles on her forehead, her cheeks. They thought they were witnessing a joke, but they didn't see those eyes. Eyes cold, sharp as a blade hidden in velvet. Eyes that once read the wind, measured the distance, and silenced enemy's breath on a battlefield 30 years ago. A mistake they'd never forget. Because in just a few minutes, the name Aaliyah Brooks would leave the entire range in stunned silence. And the most valuable lesson of their lives would be taught with a single shot. The early sunlight cast a warm golden hue over Ridgeline Shooting Complex, where American flags fluttered gently in the breeze. Sleek black SUVs lined the parking lot, doors opening in sync as men stepped out in tactical gear, sunglasses shielding steely gazes, their faces radiating military pride. They were the Silver Eagles Colorado's top sniper team, a source of pride and an unspoken arrogance whispered behind their backs. Not far from them, an old sedan quietly pulled into a spot. The door creaked open, and Aaliyah Brooks stepped out. At 68, with her salt and pepper hair neatly pinned, her deep brown eyes twinkling behind thin glasses, she looked more like a grandma popping by the grocery store for bread than someone about to step onto an elite firing range. She wore a beige jacket, a soft blue sweater, khaki pants, and worn sneakers and outfit with not a hint of weaponry or ammunition. But that very misfit image drew curious glances as she approached the registration desk. A young receptionist tilted her head, frowning slightly. "Ma'am, can I help you? The birdwatching group meets on Tuesdays." A few quiet chuckles rippled down the line. The burly guys nearby exchanged smirks. Elia simply smiled gently. "No, I booked a precision shooting session." "Alia Brooks, say buenas." The receptionist blinked, quickly scanning the computer screen. Her eyes widened. "Oh, you're right. You're scheduled for today. First time here, ma'am." "Yes, sir." Aaliyah nodded, signing her name in a steady hand. "A birthday gift from my grandson. He said I should try something new." Laughter erupted from a corner of the room. A muscle-bound guy named Ryan nudged his buddy. "Grandma's hitting the range must be lost." Aaliyah walked past them, wordless. Did she not hear no care or simply not bother? No one knew. Connor Walsh, the head instructor, approached with a confident smile, radiating the air of a man used to attention. Tight black t-shirt stretched over bulging muscles, hair styled impeccably. He extended a hand. "Hello, Mrs. Brooks. I'm Connor. I'll be coaching you today." His voice was sweet but laced with condescension, the way one talks to a child or someone forgetful. "Ever shot a gun before?" Elia adjusted her glasses, her voice calm, steady. "It's been a long time. I'll need a little refresh." "Metal." Swinmin Shamershiman. Connor nodded, suppressing a sigh. "No worries. Jamasinos. We'll start from the basics. Safety first." He spoke slowly, each word as if lecturing kindergartners. Elia smiled softly, following him to the outdoor range. The firing line stretched 1 yards, metal targets gleaming at various distances. The Silver Eagles had claimed the center lanes, their arsenal displayed like a weapons lab. They prepped their gear, casting puzzled grins toward the lone elderly woman. Connor led Aaliyah to an isolated corner. He began explaining. "This is the stock. This is the trigger. But never pointed at anyone unless you intend to shoot." "Got it." "Understood," Aaliyah replied, voice light as a breeze. Marcus, leader of the Silver Eagles, wandered over, curiosity and mockery in his eyes. "First time? Huh, this ain't easy." Ma'am. Mm-hmm, Elia answered, gaze calm. My husband had a hunting rifle. Never touched it myself. Marcus glanced at Connor, smirking. Well, Connor, you've got yourself a special student today. Connor chuckled awkwardly. Don't worry. I'll have her hitting paper at 100 yards by the end of the session. Marcus burst out laughing. 100 yards, that's adorable. The laughter echoed around them. Alia didn't flinch. She gazed into the distance, the breeze brushing her cheek. She felt the wind's direction. She measured the distance with her eyes. She remembered the feel of gripping a stock, a cheek pressed against the scope, the stillness of held breath. Connor set up a paper target at 50 yards. Let's start here. Just try to hit the paper. Elia looked down at the rifle, her hand running gently along the stock. A touch, tender, familiar, like greeting an old friend. Let's see, she murmured. She aimed. Imperturbable, breathed, held her breath. Squeezed the trigger. Ifrikanar and Tessavern. Bang, Shirley Darren. The bullet missed the target. Connor smirked, hiding a grin. No worries, everyone misses the first time. Let me adjust your hands. He corrected her stance, guiding her arms like teaching a child. Aaliyah said nothing, didn't resist. But in the depths of her brown eyes, a fire quietly kindled, silent, patient, fierce. And no one knew. The game had just begun. Aaliyah Brooks took a slow, steady breath. Her warm brown eyes, sharp and focused, locked onto the target at the end of the firing range. The earlier hint of awkwardness had completely vanished. She gently placed her finger on the trigger, feeling every subtle vibration of the rifle, a weapon no longer unfamiliar, though not fully intimate after years of absence. Connor stood behind her, arms crossed, his gaze a mix of curiosity and lingering doubt. He was beginning to sense something different about this woman, though he couldn't quite name it yet. Aaliyah, he spoke, his voice losing some of its earlier confidence. Try adjusting your shooting stance again. Don't tense your shoulder too much. Aaliyah gave a slight nod, but deep down, she knew exactly what her body needed. In the military, she'd trained hundreds of soldiers. She just chose to hide now, beneath the guise of a middle-aged woman trying shooting for the first time. And that facade was about to lift. A shot rang out. The metallic ping echoed across the range as the bullet struck dead center on the 100-yard target. Connor squinted through his spotting scope, startled. Whoa, center hit, he muttered, genuinely surprised. From the benches across the field, Marcus and the Silver Eagles team, mid-break, turned their eyes toward Aaliyah. Ryan nudged Marcus with his elbow, raising an eyebrow. She just hit that. Adriana. Marcus shrugged, lips curling in a half-mocking smirk. Lucky shot. Connor glanced back at Aaliyah, trying to hide his surprise. Great job. Aaliyah, let's try again. Consistency is key. Aaliyah said nothing. She reloaded, adjusted her stance, synced her breathing, and squeezed the trigger. Another clean shot. The second bullet landed right next to the first. Connor raised the scope again, holding it to his eye for a long moment. Marcus shot up from his seat. No way. He mumbled. The Silver Eagles murmured among themselves. Ryan whipped out his phone, starting to record. Hit it again, Connor requested, his voice now lower, more serious. Aaliyah smiled faintly, a subtle, knowing smile. The third shot fired, completing a near-perfect triangle with the first two. Silence fell over the shooting range. Marcus walked closer, brows knitted together. Mrs. Turret. Brooks, you've shot before, haven't you? His tone had lost its teasing edge, replaced by a flicker of unease. Aaliyah set the rifle down, removed her safety glasses, and turned toward Marcus with a calm, steady gaze. A little, she replied, deliberately vague. Connor's astonishment could no longer be concealed. Aaliyah, seriously, have you competed before or served? Aaliyah gently brushed some dust from her sleeve. Just an old job, an old chapter of life. She gazed into the distant mountains beyond the range, the sky now painted in soft amber hues. But some skill you never forget. Marcus frowned, stepping back. Ryan whispered, I've got a feeling. She used to be something bigger than we think. Connor's eyes suddenly lit up as a thought struck him. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. Seconds later, his eyes widened. No freaking way. He stared at the screen, jaw slightly slack. Aaliyah Brooks, former Special Forces sniper. One of the few women to win gold at the International Sniper Competition in 1999. Marcus and Ryan spun around to face Connor. What? Marcus yelled. Aaliyah simply shrugged, her smile widening. Google sure loves to gossip. She lifted the rifle, slinging it effortlessly over her shoulder. So, ready for the next challenge. Her tone was serene, but her eyes glimmered with quiet challenge. Connor slowly nodded, a blend of respect and disbelief written across his face. Yeah, but this time, we're taking it to 500 yards. He glanced sideways at Marcus, who still stood frozen. Aaliyah stepped up to the new bench, positioned her rifle, and adjusted her scope. She needed no coaching. Connor and the entire Silver Eagles team watched silently. The air shifted, moving from mockery to curiosity to an unmistakable respect tinged with humility. Wind 5 miles northwest, Aaliyah murmured, making subtle adjustments. She inhaled, held her breath, squeezed the trigger. The bullet sliced through the air. Marcus nearly dropped the spotting scope. Dead center, he shouted this time with genuine awe. Connor turned to Marcus, a quiet grin spreading across his face. Looks like we just learned one hell of a lesson today. Aaliyah turned toward the group, her voice calm yet resolute. Never judge someone by their appearance. She slipped on her glasses, hoisted the rifle onto her shoulder. Especially a woman in her 60s? As Aaliyah Brooks quietly adjusted her position at the shooting bench, the late afternoon sunlight stretched long across Ridgeline Shooting Complex. The Silver Eagles were no longer laughing. They huddled together, watching intently, their eyes a mix of curiosity, caution, and a creeping uncertainty. Connor stood silently now, arms folded tightly across his chest, his gaze sharp and unblinking on Aaliyah. You really want to try for the 100-yard target? Connor asked, his voice carrying a rare note of seriousness. Aaliyah, even the best shooters on my team struggle at that distance. Aaliyah gave a soft smile, her deep, dark eyes shining with a calm steadiness. I didn't come here to prove anything, Connor, she replied quietly. I just want to see how much I still have left. She slowly opened an old leather case, pulling out a light brown bolt-action rifle. The rifle bore small scratches, marks of time, yet gleamed with meticulous care. The Silver Eagles fell silent. Marcus, who had been the first to mock her earlier, raised an eyebrow. Is that an M45? Close, Aaliyah answered gently as she assembled the rifle piece by piece, her movements fluid, as natural as breathing. It's a custom-modified version of the Marine Corps model. Connor watched her attach the scope, adjust the bipod, his hands trembling slightly. Not from nerves, but sheer amazement. Aaliyah, did you serve? Aaliyah's smile flickered, touched with a quiet sadness. I trained others, not for the military, but for people who needed the skills to make it back home. That simple, cryptic statement was enough to silence the entire group. A new atmosphere settled over them, where laughter and scorn had once filled the air, now replaced by respect and a dawning realization. All right then, Connor stepped back, signaling Marcus. Marcus, mark the 1-yard target. Make sure nobody's near the impact zone. Marcus nodded, jogging off to make adjustments. The entire range seemed to hold its breath. Nearby staff, curious onlookers, even seasoned shooters, drifted closer, drawn to the scene unfolding. A 68-year-old black woman, once dismissed as a joke, now commanding the stage. Aaliyah lay prone, cheek pressed against the rifle stock, her gaze peering down the long scope. She felt the wind brushing her hair, listened to its whispers, to the faint sounds of metal, to the rhythm of her own heartbeat. All the cluttered noise of the world seemed to vanish. There was only her and the distant target. Wind southwest, about 5 knots. Marcus reported over the radio. "I just left 1.5 MOA. Aliyah gave a slight nod. "Copy that. Irradiator to one on our insurance." Her voice was steady, unwavering. She inhaled deeply, held half a breath, and squeezed the trigger. A shot cracked through the air. Marcus snapped his eye to the spotting scope, his jaw falling open. Deep, dead center. A murmur swept through the Silver Eagles. Connor stood frozen. "What the hell?" Marcus whispered. "No way." Confirmed. Aliyah chambered a second round, her voice calm. Another shot fired. Marcus's eyes stayed glued to the lens. His mouth dropped further. Hybris Attertini groups tight, less than an inch apart. Connor moved closer, glancing at Marcus. "You sure?" Marcus lifted his eye from the scope, nodding vigorously. "Sure. Damn sure. She's up. She's grouping perfectly at 1 yards." Aliyah fired a third round. The bullet landed silently, stacking into the near-perfect cluster already marked by the first 2 shots. Marcus pressed a hand to his chest, as if to check that his heart was still beating. 3 shots, a triangle nearly perfect. Silence stretched across the entire shooting range. Stunned stares, quiet awe, and faces reflecting inward reckonings. Connor stepped forward, standing beside Aliyah, his voice low and humbled. "Aliyah, I need to know. Who are you, really?" Aliyah took off her glasses, turned toward him, her smile gentle but her gaze piercing. "Connor, sometimes people forget a simple truth. Skill isn't tied to age or appearance. It's carried in experience. And in belief." She stood, calmly packing the rifle back into its case with deliberate care. "I'm just someone who once promised her husband she'd never let this skill fade." Connor gave a slow nod, his eyes a swirl of admiration, respect, and quiet shame. Across the range, Marcus and the Silver Eagles approached, no longer the men who'd laughed and jeered earlier, but humbled students. Marcus extended a hand. "Aliyah, would you teach us?" Aliyah looked at them, a glint of humor in her eyes. "Only if you're willing to set aside your egos." Connor smiled this time, a genuine, open smile. "Deal." The evening sun dipped lower, casting a soft golden glow over the range. And there, standing tall among those who once underestimated her, Aliyah Brooks embodied a living testament. True strength never fades unless you let it. The training began right after that legendary shot. Aliyah Brooks set her rifle case down on the long table, then turned to face the still stunned faces of the Silver Eagles team. No one spoke. Marcus was the first to break the silence. "So, where do we start?" he asked. Aliyah smiled a warm smile, yet one that carried quiet determination. "We start," she said, "from the place where you thought you were already the best." Connor nodded, signaling the team to gather around. "Sit down. Guys," he said, "today, we're not here to show off. We're not competing. Today, we learn." Aliyah stepped forward, pulling from her bag an old notebook, its faded leather cover worn at the edges. She flipped through a few creased pages. "This is my curriculum," she explained. "I wrote it for my first students, people who didn't have the luxury of failure. They had to learn to survive." Marcus widened his eyes. "Is this military training?" "Not exactly," Aliyah answered, her voice low and steady. "But every lesson in here has been tested in the real world." Connor sat cross-legged on the ground, eyes locked on the notebook. The others quietly scooted closer, leaving behind their fancy chairs, their expensive gear, and the egos that had once seemed so large. Aliyah began to relate to me, Commission. "You all think shooting skill is about technique, but the truth is 70% is mindset, 20% is psychology, and only 10% is mechanics." What Ryan frowned. "Only 10%. Aliyah nodded, You've spent 90% of your time polishing rifles, tweaking scopes, and upgrading gear, but almost forgot the real weapon is your mind. To hit the target, you must first conquer the fear inside yourself. No one laughed. No one argued. Connor whispered, "Took him. Keep going." Aaliyah. She walked over to the shooting bench, drawing a small circle on the wooden surface. This is focus. When you fixate inside the circle, the outside world disappears. She then traced a larger circle around it. But if you only look here, you won't see the wind, won't notice the shifting light, won't catch the slightest movement at the edges. We're limiting ourselves, Marcus murmured. Elia nodded gently. Exactly. Long-range shooting isn't just aim and squeeze. It's reading the wind, listening to the grass, feeling your heartbeat. You're not just fighting a target, you're battling nature itself. Connor glanced at the American flag flapping in the late afternoon breeze. I've never thought of it that way. Alia smiled. Because you've been taught how to win, not how to understand. And understanding is the most enduring victory. She turned to Ryan, resting a hand lightly on his shoulder. You, sir. Try the 500-yard target. But this time, don't look through the scope right away. Close your eyes. Listen. One. Feel. Only when you're certain, open your eyes. Ryan swallowed hard. Slowly, he closed his eyes, raised the rifle, and breathed deeply. Silence hung in the air. A breeze whispered by. The sound of leaves stirred softly. A shot rang out. The bullet sliced through the air. Marcus ran to check the target, then raised both hands high. Hit dead center. The whole team erupted with cheers. Ryan opened his eyes, disbelief written across his face. I did it, Alia nodded. You just taught yourself one thing. I do trust your instincts. Connor burst out laughing. First time I've ever seen Ryan speechless. Laughter rippled among them easy, genuine, connecting. Alia looked at each of them. This is the team you were meant to be. Not a squad chasing trophies, but one that listens, that learns, that respects. Marcus stepped forward, offering his hand. Hernalisha, thank you. Today is the most meaningful day of my career. Elias squeezed his hand gently. It's only the beginning. Keep that fire burning. The sun sank lower behind the mountains. Connor took a deep breath, looking around. Alia, will you come back next week? Alia hoisted her bag onto her shoulder, her eyes shining in the twilight. Connor, don't wait for me. Starting today, it's your turn to be the teacher. She turned away, leaving behind admiring eyes, hearts stirred to their core, and a quiet reminder. Skill doesn't live in the gun, it lives in the soul. The following week, Ridgeline Shooting Complex felt different. The Silver Eagles arrived earlier than usual, but this time, there was no cocky laughter, no arrogant glances. Instead, they quietly set up their gear with unusual focus, exchanging thoughts about wind direction, humidity, even sharing insights they'd once kept to themselves. Connor stood at the center of the range, arms crossed, scanning the area. Aaliyah didn't come, he murmured, half disappointed, half hopeful. Marcus nodded. She told us, remember, this was the real test. No one's coming to hold our hands anymore. Ryan chuckled. Don't tell me you were hoping she'd show up like some kind of superhero. Connor shook his head, smiling softly. No, but maybe I just wanted to hear her remind us one more time. At that very moment, an old Jeep rolled up at the far end of the range. No horn, no fanfare, but everyone recognized the figure stepping out. Alia Brooks. Tirani. She wore a light brown jacket, simple jeans, and a baseball cap shading her eyes. And those eyes still sharp, still piercing. She walked up, nodded to the team. I'm not here to teach, she said calmly. I came to see what you've learned. Marcus stepped forward, holding a notebook. We've documented every drill. We paired up, rotating as shooter and spotter. Yesterday's results, 30% better than last week. Aliyah skimmed the notes. Good, but don't get hung up on numbers. As long as tomorrow you shoot better than today, that's a win. Ryan spoke up, shyly. Today we want to try 1,000 yards. Aliyah raised an eyebrow, half surprised, half pleased. Confident. I see. Connor stepped forward, holding binoculars. The whole team wants to prove it. Not to you. To ourselves. Aliyah smiled softly. Then show me. The challenge began. One by one, each man approached the bench, set up, aimed, adjusted, and fired him. Bullets sliced through the air, and metal clangs echoed from afar. Marcus hit the target first. Connor followed. Ryan, after 3 tries, finally clipped the outer edge. Aliyah nodded. It doesn't have to be dead center. It just has to get there. When everyone had fired, she walked forward, quietly picking up the still warm casings. Each bullet tells a story, she said gently. Each squeeze of the trigger is a commitment. To yourself. To the goal. To the person next to you. Silence fell. Her words carved deep. Suddenly, from a distance, car horns sounded. A convoy of sleek black vehicles bearing the emblem of the National Rifle Association rolled up. A tall man with silver hair stepped out, shook hands with the range owner, then headed toward them. Aliyah Brooks, he asked. She stood tall, eyes calm. Yes, sorry. We've heard of your work training a young team, achieving unprecedented results in such a short time. The board would like to invite you to consult on a national training program. Connor froze. Marcus blurted. Wait, you're a legend. Aliyah looked around, her gaze warm. Legend is just a title others give you. Me, I'm just someone who never stopped learning. The man nodded. And what about them? He gestured toward the Silver Eagles. Aliyah smiled. They don't need me. They've already found what matters most. Respect for each other and belief in themselves. Connor stepped forward, his eyes sincere. But if you're willing, would you be our honorary coach? Marcus chimed in. No official title needed. Just every time you show up, we know we have to focus harder, stay humbler, push further. Aliyah laughed softly. Now that is an offer I can't refuse. The team clapped, not loud, not flashy, but full of heart. As the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the range, Aliyah gazed into the distance, where the 1,000 yard target gleamed faintly. Every journey begins with a single step, she whispered. And sometimes, the most important step is toward what others said you couldn't do. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over Ridgeline Shooting Complex, a strange hush settled over the place. No one took their eyes off Aliyah Brooks. The murmurs and whispers had faded. Everyone was watching her, the woman who had just hit a perfect shot at 1,000 yards, 3 consecutive times, flawlessly. Connor Walsh stepped closer, his gaze completely transformed. No more arrogance, no more skepticism. It was the look of a man who realized he had misjudged, and beneath it, genuine admiration. Aliyah, he spoke, his voice no longer playful but calm, almost reverent. I have no words. You just gave us a lesson I don't think I'll ever forget. Aliyah removed her safety glasses, her deep brown eyes glinting with a quiet smile. That's what I hoped for, she answered softly. Not to prove anything to me, but so you'd see the only limits are the ones you place on yourselves. Marcus, leader of the Silver Eagles, also approached. He scratched his head, looking at Aliyah with a mix of awkwardness and awe. You served in the military, didn't you? He asked, almost unable to believe it. Aliyah nodded gently. For a long time, but more importantly, I was an instructor. And what do I see today? A team with great potential, but blocked by ego and prejudice. Marcus frowned slightly. You mean, you're skilled for Natinmon Eminia 1 but skill alone isn't enough. You laughed at me because I'm older, because I'm a woman, Because I didn't dress like a professional shooter. Those assumptions blinded you. And when you let prejudice guide you, you miss chances to learn from those who don't look like you. A heavy silence fell. Connor stared at the ground, shoulders sagging a bit. I, I acted badly, he admitted. I let my pride get in the way. Aaliyah placed a hand on his shoulder. But you've realized it. That's the first step. She looked around, her gaze sweeping across the faces of the Silver Eagles. I didn't come here to win. I came to remind you, everyone has something to teach us. If we're humble enough to listen, a clap rang out, starting with Alexis, the young female trainer Aaliyah had noticed earlier. Then, one by one, the entire Silver Eagles team joined in. No more laughter. No more doubtful stares. Only respect and hope. Mary Wacken. Aaliyah. Marcus spoke up. Could you come back, not just for a session, but for a full training program? We want to learn from you. Aaliyah thought for a moment, then smiled. Next week. Ni Western. Ebmirn Chuin. Bring your patience and leave your egos at home. Connor chuckled, visibly relieved. Deal. Aaliyah packed up her rifle, carefully placing each piece into her worn leather case. As she stood, Marcus extended his hand. Thank you for giving all of us, a second chance. She shook his hand firmly. Second chances are always there, Marcus. It just takes courage to see them and take them. The sunset stretched across the range, casting a warm glow over Aaliyah's face, radiant, at peace. A day that began with mockery and dismissal had ended with respect and a hunger to learn. And she knew her new journey with the Silver Eagles was only just beginning. A week later, right at 9 a.m., Aaliyah Brooks returned to Ridgeline Shooting Complex. But this time, no one looked at her with skepticism or mockery. There were no whispers, no smug grins. Instead, the Silver Eagles stood in a straight line, rifles ready, eyes locked on her, eager, determined. Connor was the first to step forward. We've been here since 7, Sesame Main, Sherry Wynn. Whoa, practicing the basics like you told us, he said earnestly. No showing off, no competing, just repeating simple drills. Aaliyah nodded approvingly. Good for Enritin. But today, we're not just going to learn how to shoot. We're going to learn how to see, how to feel. She pointed off into the distance, where American flags fluttered gently, where the fields beside the range shimmered in the morning sun. Close your eyes. Feel the wind. Hear the birds. Smell the grass. A great marksman isn't just fast or precise. They merge with their environment. They become part of it. Marcus frowned slightly, puzzled, but followed her lead. Connor watched Aaliyah for a moment, then closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. A quiet stillness settled over them. No jokes, no rush, just breathing and listening. When they opened their eyes again, Aaliyah smiled softly. You've just learned the first lesson. Patience. Now for the second. She led them to the firing line, but didn't hand out rifles immediately. Instead, Aaliyah spread out a topographical map on a table, filled with hand-drawn notes and symbols. This is where we'll shoot, but you won't just aim and pull the trigger. Every bullet travels through terrain, through wind, through distance. I want you to calculate, to anticipate, before you fire, you must understand the bullet's journey. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You want us to draw the bullet's path? Exactly. Aaliyah nodded. Every shot is an equation. Don't just trust the scope. Trust your mind. For the next 2 hours, under the growing heat, the Silver Eagles worked hard measuring distances, calculating wind drift, and sketching firing angles on paper. They struggled. They debated, they erased and rewrote. But they learned. Alexis, the young female trainer, was the first to raise her hand. Aaliyah, she said, sweat beading her forehead. I think I get it. But when we actually shoot, it'll feel different, won't it? Elia nodded. Yes. Because then, your heart will race. Your hands will tremble. The pressure will weigh on you. But if your mind is steady, your body will follow. Finally, Elia handed each person a special bullet, engraved with their name on the casing. This is your first shot today. Shoot as if this is your only chance. Marcus stepped up first. He held his breath, adjusted his stance, and peered through the scope. A shot rang out. The target at 500 yards trembled. Connor checked through the spotting scope, then raised a thumbs up. Hit slightly off-center, but hit. One by one, each team member stepped forward. Each hit their target, none perfect, but each shot filled with focus and humility. More importantly, they were no longer arrogant marksmen. They were students, respecting the lesson. When it was Aaliyah's turn, her bullet struck dead center, no deviation, no correction needed. But she only smiled calmly and packed away her rifle. Tomorrow, we'll raise the challenge. But today, you've taken a big step. Putting down your egos, learning with your hearts. Connor approached, his voice low. Thank you, Aaliyah. I don't think I've ever learned this much in just a few hours. Aaliyah crossed her arms, watching the Silver Eagles chat excitedly, sharing techniques, helping each other. No more mockery, no more bravado, only camaraderie and a hunger greater than any trophy. She knew tomorrow they'd go even further. But today, they had already won against themselves. That morning, Ridgeline Shooting Complex had never been busier. A long line of cars filled the parking lot, from the Silver Eagles' sleek SUVs to trucks carrying equipment from local news stations. The rumor had spread fast. Aaliyah Brooks, the legendary sniper, has returned and will be leading a special training session. Aaliyah stood before the firing benches, her simple jeans and light blue shirt blending her seamlessly into the Colorado sky. Her eyes gleamed with the sharp focus her young trainees had now grown familiar with, no longer the frail old woman they'd underestimated, but a calm, commanding teacher. All right, Aaliyah spoke, her voice steady and clear. Today isn't just about shooting. Today is we learn how to see what others don't. The Silver Eagles fell silent, their gazes filled with admiration and determination. Marcus nodded. Ready, Coach? Aaliyah smiled gently. First, we return to the 1-yard target. Connor set up the spotting scope, his eyes no longer skeptical, but eager. All positions are ready. Aaliyah stepped up to the firing platform, setting her scoped rifle on the rest. She didn't immediately peer through the scope. Instead, she closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, feeling the breeze brush her silver hair. East-northeast wind, 3 miles per hour, she murmured, temperature rising. Then she opened her eyes, looked through the scope, made a slight adjustment. Marcus, pay attention. When the wind shifts, the bullet doesn't just drift sideways, it's also affected by the heat. Remember that. Marcus scribbled notes furiously. Aaliyah squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, echoing across the hillside. Connor scanned through the scope. Dead center. Perfect, he shouted, unable to hide his excitement. Applause erupted from the crowd behind them. A reporter hurriedly filmed, muttering under his breath. She really is a legend. Aaliyah turned to the Silver Eagles. Now, each of you, don't just shoot. Feel the environment. Feel every element around you. An hour passed. One by one, they took their positions. Shots rang out at first, veering inches off, then gradually pulling closer, each bullet drawing nearer to the center. Good, Aaliyah nodded. You're starting to listen. Suddenly, a voice called from behind. The owner of Ridgeline approached, holding an envelope. Aaliyah, message from the Department of Defense. Aaliyah frowned slightly, took it, opened it, and read. Then she smiled softly. What is it? Connor asked. Aaliyah folded the letter and slipped it into her pocket. They've invited me to serve as a special advisor for the Joint Sniper Training Program. Marcus's jaw dropped. You're leaving us. Elia gazed around, her eyes sweeping across the eager, determined faces. Maybe, but before I go, I want one thing. What's that? Ryan asked. Elia stepped closer, resting a hand on Connor's and Marcus's shoulders. You don't need me. You only need each other. Remember, the rifle isn't your strength. Skill isn't your victory. A humble heart is what keeps you on the path. Silence fell. Then Marcus slowly nodded. Connor clasped Aaliyah's hand. We promise, Connor said, to pass this lesson on to the next generation. Aaliyah smiled warmly. Good, boy. As the sun began to set, Aaliyah climbed into her car. The Silver Eagles lined up, saluting her like soldiers bidding farewell to a general. The engine rumbled to life, the car pulling away, leaving a trail of dust beneath the golden sunset. Marcus watched her go, his voice soft as a whisper. We once laughed at an old lady, and now she's the one who changed this entire team. Connor squeezed Marcus's shoulder. She changed all of us. Far in the distance, the car blended into the last light of day. Overhead, an eagle cried out against the sky. And below, a young team humbled, united, stood ready for a new chapter. And that was Aaliyah Brooks, the woman they once mocked, but who became the legend who taught them a lifetime's lesson. One day on the range, leaving a mark that would never fade. They thought strength lay in muscle, in the latest gear. But Aaliyah showed them, true strength lies in the heart, in calmness, in eyes that see deeper than appearances. Never underestimate someone just because they don't look the part. The person you look down on today might be the one you stand in awe of tomorrow. Have you ever misjudged someone? Have you ever been underestimated and proved them wrong? Share your story in the comments. We want to hear from you. If this story inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with friends, family, and coworkers. Subscribe now, because we've got hundreds of inspiring stories that will remind you. Sometimes, the greatest heroes wear the humblest faces. Remember, por forza il torino. Never judge a book by its cover, and never judge a person by their appearance. They just might be the world's hidden weapon waiting to be seen. See you in the next story. Don't miss it.